Hi, this is Andy from GPS Training. In this short video we're just looking at some battery save tips that you can enable on an Instinct watch. We're using the Instinct 2 Solar today. Now on this watch we should expect to get round about 30 hours recording time using GPS only, but there is ways we can increase that figure. The things we tend to look at is changing the backlight level settings, turning off things like the gesture where you lift your wrist up and the backlight automatically comes on, because that can use extra battery. Also, there's little tips like turning off the heart rate sensor if you don't need the heart rate sensor on, you're not worried about the data recording. This could be doing a really long hiking event over multiple days where you're really needing to save that battery. And we'll look at a few other tips as well that you can implement. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the main setting in the system settings where we can change the display backlight and also that gesture alert. Turn that off if it is on, will help save battery. So the first thing we're going to do is just hold the middle left button in the menu button till we go to the menu, and then use the up button, which is the middle menu button again. Just press that once to go up, and we can see system is the option for system settings. Press the GPS OK button once to go into system settings, and then we can use the up and down buttons to scroll between all of the options, and we're looking at the backlight option. So with backlight selected, press the OK button, and you see during an activity, so we can change it for during an activity in general use. So if I select during an activity, we've only got the brightness at 20%. We find that adequate. You can adjust depending on light conditions, but the watch does have a sunlight readable trans-reflective screen, so actually in the bright sunlight you find you don't really need that brightness up high. It's more than likely when you're inside using it just as a watch and in a building that you sometimes do put the backlight up a little bit. If we wanted to adjust that backlight, OK button, and then we can use the up or down to scroll between the different percentages, but we would recommend leaving it around 20%. You don't really need it any higher. And then if we scroll down, we've got it set so when we press a button, keys on, the backlight will come on. Happy with that. And where it says gesture, we've got it set at the minute as after sunset. So that means after sunset, if I was to lift the watch up, the backlight will come on. Normally as default you find the setting is on or off. It's not normally on the after sunset. We tend to turn it off. So if I actually turn it off now, all that means is when it's dark, if I want to see the backlight on to read the watch, I simply press the light button once, which is the top left hand button, rather than having gesture on all the time. You could try with the gesture on just after sunset to see how you get on, but to save the most battery, I would tend to have it as off and just use the backlight button when needed. And finally, timeout, we've only got that set as 8 seconds. I wouldn't normally have it any longer than that. The longer you put it, the more battery it's going to use. That means when the backlight does come on, it's how long it stays on for. Again, you could reduce it down to 4 seconds, which is the minimum, but we tend to have it at 8 seconds. So don't have that timeout too long. So I'm just going to press the back button to come out of there, and we've got exactly the same setting in general use and during sleep. So again, I'll just go into general use to give you an idea. We've got brightness at 20%, so again, I don't tend to have it any higher than that. The lower you have it, the more battery you're going to save. We've got it turned on, so when we press a button it comes on. And also we've got this one as gesture after sunset. So again, I could just turn that off if I didn't want that on, and that will help save battery. And the timeout, again, we've got it 8 seconds. So that is the backlight settings you can adjust by keeping the percentage down and potentially turning off that gesture so that when you lift your wrist, it's not coming on. Because what we find when you're running, moving your arm and hiking with the unit, you find the backlight will come on when you didn't want it to, because it sees that as a gesture and a movement of you twisting your arm unintentionally to view the screen. So all we do now, if we wanted the backlight on, we've got the top left hand light button that brings the backlight on, and then when it times out you can press that button again to bring it on. So that's the first thing we're looking at. The next thing we can look at is the heart rate sensor. So when you're doing an activity, you can actually put it in a setting called jacket mode, which it's designed really for if you're wearing the watch, say, over a sleeve when you're maybe using it for something like skiing, where it's not going to read the heart rate through the sensor on the back because you've got it on at the outside of your wrist over a jacket. But it doesn't matter if you are actually wearing the wrist directly to the skin, but you're not worried about having the heart rate sensor data. You can actually turn that off for various activities. So I'll just give you an example of that. If I press the top right hand OK button, so let's say I'm doing trail run, I'm using the trail run activity. Before I go into trail run, if I hold again the middle left hand settings button, and I've got the option trail run settings, and if in trail run settings I go down to power mode, it's normally set as default normal. We have an option in here where we can set it as jacket mode, and with jacket mode that will turn off the heart rate sensor. Keeps all the Bluetooth settings on, etc. It's just turning off the heart rate sensor. You probably have noticed there is a max battery mode here, but what we find with the max battery mode, as well as turning off heart rate, turns off your Bluetooth settings, which you can do manually and paired with your phone, but it also puts the watch in ultra track mode. Now ultra track mode means the watch will only record your GPS activity every minute. So if you're wanting a more accurate track recording and you're using the watch for navigating, even though I know it really does increase the battery life, we don't tend to use ultra track ourselves, but you have got that option of putting it in max battery, and in max battery you've got heart rate off and you're turning off all the Bluetooth functions. But jacket mode is a nice one if you're happy just to turn off the heart rate sensor so you haven't got heart rate on. So if we put it in jacket mode, that means as default when I use trail running, it's in jacket mode and not using the heart rate sensor. If I want to put it back, I can simply select again and put it back to the normal mode. But I'm just going to leave this one in jacket mode for the moment. So that is the first setting we're looking at on an activity where you can save battery by turning off the heart rate sensor. The other thing you could look at when you're doing an activity, if you're not needing the accuracy of GPS and GLONASS, or GPS and Galileo, where it's picking up two sets of satellites, to achieve that 30 hours that Garmin suggests you'll get is GPS only, it would be to put it as GPS only. But if you are in you're in environments where it's more challenging due to tree coverage, high cliffs, etc., and you need that stronger signal, you may want to leave it on GPS and GLONASS and GPS Galileo. But if you're on open view, across open moors, etc., a lot of your running you can try with GPS only. So again, by using the top right GPS button and trail run on the screen, if that's the activity you're using, I'm just using this as an example, you would have to go onto each of your activities and change the settings like we're showing on the example now. So in trail run, if I hold the menu button in again and go into trail run settings, as I scroll down, so we've looked at the power mode, putting it in jacket mode. If I keep scrolling down, I get one of the options when we get near the bottom is to do with GPS and Galileo, and what signal you're picking up. So this one's actually set to pick up GPS and Galileo. I can do GPS and GLONASS depending on where you are. Both of them we find are pretty much the same. We tend to use GPS and Galileo, we find a little bit more accurate at the moment. But if you put GPS only, that will save a bit more battery than having GPS and GLONASS or GPS and Galileo. We do have the option here where I mentioned Ultra Track. Now Ultra Track will really save battery because it's only getting a signal every minute, but you are going to lose that accuracy in Ultra Track. You're not going to get an accurate as accurate a recording because every minute it then has to lock onto satellites to record a point. So again, it's something if you're really needing to save the battery, give it a try, but we tend to try and stay off the Ultra Track because we want that accurate track recording as well as the navigation to be more accurate than showing where you are every minute. But again, it's just giving you an idea of things to try, so we could put it at GPS only. And the final thing we're going to look at after all these settings we've looked at is turning off potentially the Bluetooth pairing if you don't need it paired with your phone. If you are using things like live track, you would want it still paired with the phone, and you could simply just turn off the alerts. So we'll give you the two options there that you can do. So just from the main watch face, I'm going to hold the menu button in till I get to the settings, and then if we scroll down, you've got notification and alerts. So if I go into notification and alerts and smart notifications, you see their general use, status on. I can turn that off. So in general use, we're not going to get any alerts through. If it's more to do when you're recording activities, you could leave it on for general use when you're just using it as a watch. And if you go down to during activity, and where it says status on, we could turn it off. So it's not actually disabling the Bluetooth, it's just stopping messages coming through from your phone, which will use battery. If you did want to disable the Bluetooth entirely, what you can do, if I just press back to come right back to the settings menu, if we keep scrolling down till we get the option phone, which is where we pair it with our phone, and it says status there, that is on. I can turn it off, so now it's not paired at all with the phone. So of course that would automatically turn off any message alerts, but if you were using it for weather data or live tracking using the Garmin Connect app, that would disable that, but it is going to help save battery. So I hope you found some of these battery save tips useful. So the first thing we looked at was your backlight settings from the system menu and going down into system and the backlight settings. So that's the first thing we've looked at. Just get down there, backlight. So that's for the watch in general. We then, after the backlight settings, we selected one of our activities just to show how in an activity you can go into the different power modes and change it to say jacket mode to turn off the heart rate. So I've only done that for this one activity we're on. Also, while we're in the activity settings, we showed the option where you can go down to what GPS signals it's picking up, and we've selected GPS only rather than GPS and GLONASS or GPS and Galileo, which we tend to use when we're in a more challenging environment. Ultra Track, we did mention, will record every minute, but you're going to get a much less accurate signal, but it will of course save you a lot of battery. And the final thing we looked at from the main settings was in your main settings from the menu, we went down to the notifications and alerts and showed you how you could turn off your smart notifications coming through from your phone during an activity or general use. And also in the main settings, we went down to the phone setting and showed you how you can totally turn off the pairing with your phone. So I hope you found this video useful, and thanks for watching.